Hi everyone, I'm Karin and I did my research on the International Personality Item Pool. I like to call it the IPIP. This was developed alongside the five-factor model, which is essentially a model designed to look at the 5 domains of a personality in humans, and this is quite common in a lot of different types of personality assessments. I chose this one because it is free to use. It's accessible to the public, which made things a little bit easier in terms of this project. Now, research for this began all the way back in the 1930s. Some researchers named Alport and Odbert selected 4,500 words from the Webster New Dictionary to find the words that describe non-physical characteristics. Now, over the years, throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s, other researchers contributed to reducing this list down to the 5 domains, and I think it was the 70s where the 5-factor model actually came out. Now, in the 1990s, Louis Goldberg worked at the Oregon Research Institute, and his research was funded by the National Institute of Mental Health so that he could release the IPIP to the public, which originally consisted of 160 items. Now, as I mentioned, part of the purpose of this research for Goldberg was to make it free to the public. And, the 5 domains are extroversion, introversion, which is kind of like one category, emotional stability, agreeableness, conscientiousness, intellect, and imagination. Now, if anyone's familiar with the 5 domains, emotional stability is actually interchangeable with neuroticism. However, I find that emotional stability is kind of a nicer, more gentle way to approach that category, especially if you're using this in a clinical setting. But I guess that could be controversial, depending on who you ask. Anyway, the IPIP is used in places of employment, so an employer may have their employees take this assessment to figure out what position is most appropriate for them or what types of tasks will be good. It can be used in research. It can also be used in clinical settings to essentially help the counselor and the client understand the client a little bit better. Now, the client can have really high, They can score pretty high in some of the domains, showing like strength, and you can work with that and have like a strength-based approach, or it can bring attention to the categories in which the client may have not scored so high on, and that can also be a useful way to approach client healing and treatment planning. Scoring procedures. The IPIP that I used has 50 items. Now, originally, as I mentioned before, it had 160 items, and this one has 50. And it has a Likert scale style of options for the answers. It's not like a traditional Likert scale, but it has a few different options so that the test takers can choose the option which applies most to them. It is self-assessment, so it can be taken online or with a pencil and pen. And whether it's online or pencil and pen, the results will come up, online automatically, or pencil and pen. Maybe the personality professional will assess that and discuss that with their employee or the client or whatever setting it's in. So various versions of the IPIP exist with different amounts of assessment items, and this is because it is free to the public, so people can create any type of assessment they'd like with this. As I just mentioned, it is free, so anyone can create a new version of it, and this can be problematic without regulations because it can lead to misinformation if an illegitimate version of the assessment is used. As you can imagine, this can, in the wrong hands, be harmful to some people. If, a test that's not backed by research is given and the results are given to the person who took the test and they have kind of like faulty results, that can be quite harmful in the right setting or the wrong setting. Psychometric properties. One version of the IPIP assessment indicates that this measurement tool is used for ages 16 and above. Now, a researcher, Johnson, found the Cronbach's alpha in terms of reliability ranges between 0.8 and 0.9. The retest reliability was lower, yet still in the upper range of 0.6 to 0.8. Now, if we remember from our textbook, those ranges are high in reliability. There's a little chart in our textbook that has this chart that tells us, what's high and what's low in the reliability. The criterion validity predicts outcomes such as performance and well-being. The content validity was high because it was carefully reduced from the original list of 4,500 words since the 1930s. And the construct validity was apparent as it aligns closely with the Big Five model. The questions on the assessment are clear in what they measure in each group of the 5 personality domains. Multicultural and ethical considerations are important here while applying this, especially as counselors. The ACA Code of Ethics emphasizes that counselors be professional and competent in the administration of assessment tools in practice. So we don't really want to use this unless we are trained and competent in this type of assessment. As I've previously mentioned, the IPIP is public and free for anyone to use. So it is really important that when using this, we find a version, or anyone finds a version that is backed by research. Since it is self-report, there can be bias in the results because obviously an individual may view themselves differently as other people may view them. This may not be culturally appropriate as different populations see and value characteristics differently. Some strengths are that the original version of the IPIP has high reliability and validity, and it's backed by quite a bit of research. It's free, user-friendly, and can be used in various settings. It covers 5 different domains that provides a well-rounded assessment of test takers. So it can give quite a bit of information. And here are my references. Thank you for watching.